Welcome everyone to another episode of Raising the Bar, and today I have a special episode because I have Pete from the Sovereign Project. How you doing, buddy?
Not so bad. Are you? You all good?
Very good, very good. I'm happy to get into this. I'm really excited to get into this because this is a subject that, when you really go into it and open it up, it unravels the fabric of society almost, doesn't it? And it's almost like we're kept in a little bit of a trance with this. We're kept into a spell. And this is about breaking apart the difference between lawful and legal, effectively, and understanding our rights, our human rights, the law of the land versus admiralty law, effectively, and how the world that we live in, it's not even really a country, it's more of a corporation, it's more of a company, right? And so we have to sort of we're going to get into the nitty gritty and all the detail of that. So how about a good starting point then, Pete? What about if we talk about the foundation of lawful versus legal? I know I did a TikTok video about this with Gary, and it caused a bit of a ruckus. It caused a bit of a controversy. Had all these barristers, doing video replies to it. But
of course,
this is something maybe they don't even know about, is it?
Maybe, but I would suggest that if you've got all the way to becoming a barrister, then you're on the inside. You know what the game is about. If you're a low-level lawyer and you're just starting out, or a solicitor, if you're just starting out, just a junior, you're not a partner of a business firm, you're just a junior, you probably don't. And you're probably just brainwashed, and you think what you're dealing with is law, when in fact it's legislation or policies within a contract, you see. But now, once you start working your way up within the legal system, if you're a barrister, you know the game, you know about the trust, you know how the monetary system works. If you've got a law firm, if you're a partner within a law firm, you know the score, you know exactly what you're doing. If you're a judge or a magistrate, absolutely you know what you're doing. Well, I might retract that from magistrates. It looks like what they're doing with magistrates is they're just hiring members of the public to become magistrates. I think that it looks like that's what's happening. But if you're a district judge, you know exactly what's going on because you're in the club. You're part of the Masons, you're at least above 22 degrees within the Masons, you know what's going on. And if you are president or prime minister of any of these countries, you know exactly what's going on. So, but yeah, low-level lawyers and solicitors, they probably don't know. But some are waking up. Some have got into this thinking what they were doing, they thought it was good, all right? Because they thought legal was law, which it isn't. And they get into it and they start questioning it. And then they see the damage that the legal system actually causes on the general public. Okay. And it's normally the poor that suffer. If you're rich, it doesn't really affect you. So some of these lawyers are either waking up and they're quitting or getting forced out. Their license is removed and then they can no longer practice law. I might be using a lot of air quotes in this conversation. Because there's a lot of words out there that the average person does not understand because most people are illiterate, all right? Now, that doesn't mean they can't recognize text on a piece of paper because most people can. But what I'm saying is they do not understand the meaning behind the words. They can't comprehend what's actually going on. They can't understand the legalese. They can't understand even basic words. Like, for example, the word license. The average person has no clue what that means. And in basic terminology, that means asking permission. It doesn't mean qualified or certified. It just means asking permission. So if you are requiring a license, what you're doing is you're asking permission from a higher authority to do the thing. Okay. So when you start looking into this, you go, well, why do I have a driver's license? If I own the car, who am I asking permission from to drive my car if I actually own it? And of course, that's where the scam is. So words like that, people don't understand what register means. It means handing over ownership. Okay, so if you register anything, if you break the word down, register, regis, handing over to the king, and anything with ER at the end means action. All right, so for example, if you bake a cake, that makes you a baker. You're an which means the action of baking a cake, okay? So register, what you're doing is you're carrying out an action and you're handing over ownership to the king or higher authority, register. So every time you register anything, that's your children, your car, your business, your house, anything at all, if you're going to register it with any corporate agency, This includes Google and Apple and all the rest of it, and including corporate agencies within government. Government is just a corporation, okay, no different than McDonald's. If you do that, if you're handing over, if you register, you're handing over ownership. So whatever it is you're handing over ends up in a trust, okay, and all you are left with is user rights. The most obvious one would be your car. All right, so you would register your car, and DVLA sends you out a logbook, and you've become the registered keeper. And it even says on your logbook, it says, this is not proof of ownership. It's telling you, okay, even though it's in all caps, but it's still notifying you that you do not own the car anymore. And the reason you don't own it anymore, and you can tell this, is because you have to pay tax now. You go, if it's mine, why am I paying tax? Well, it's not yours. It's government property now. You now have a license plate on the front of government property. You're now using it under license. You're asking permission from the government. Can I use government property? They say, yes, you can, but these are the rules. You now have to tax it. And now you've got to MOT it. By the way, an MOT has got nothing to do with seeing how good or reliable your car is. That's a tax inspection. So the car's just being inspected for tax once a year, every 12 months. So all this stuff is applied because you've registered. It's the same with you've now accepted the highway code. All right. So all of that now applies to you. So you've got that registration plate, the license plate on your car. It's government property. You're driving down the road, and now all the speed limits apply to you. All that highway code applies to you. ULEZ applies to you. All the congestion charges apply to you. Parking tickets now apply to you because you've accepted it.
Why though? No, sorry, what? Just to interject, why, if they own it, why are you liable for the bills though?
I know. Good question. Because they're doing a little bit of bait and switch. They do a bit of a switcheroo here. Now we'll dig a little bit deeper into this, how this trust works. And by the way, you might notice that the logo for the DVLA is a triangle. That's a symbol for a trust. They're telling you it's a trust. So what you've done, if you've handed over your car to the DVLA, you are the grantor. You've just placed something of value within that trust. Okay. Now that actually makes you the beneficiary. Okay. And the trustee is the DVLA. The DVLA is actually the trustee. So in reality, the DVLA is actually liable for everything on that car. They're supposed to maintain it, pay the servicing costs and pay the tax on it and the MOT. They're supposed to fill it up with petrol for you. They're supposed to maintain it all because they're the trustees. Okay. But what they do is they do a little bit of switcheroo. It's like they get the triangle, the three-way triangle. So you've got the beneficiary, the grantor, that's you. They're the trustee, and they switch it. And they make you the trustee, and they make themselves the beneficiary. It's a sleight of hand. They do the same with mortgages as well. They're very, very similar setup. They change the position. So you've now become the trustee. So even though you're the grantor and you've put that property into that trust, they've tricked you into becoming the trustee. And now you have to pay for all the maintenance and everything that comes along with it. Now, a lot of people panic and they start going, oh, my God, the system is so powerful. And I go, no, it's not. You were never given informed consent. You were never told this. Were you told this if you registered your car that you are handing over ownership? No. So it's without informed consent, there is no contract. Without any contract, everything that the DVLA does is null and void. So a lot of people panic. I know a lot of the stuff I talk about, people panic. I'm telling people, don't panic. The Sovereign Project is working on solutions, so don't panic. But yes, people don't understand what ownership means and user rights and all the rest of it.
Yeah, fantastic. Because that was another video that Gary did. He says you don't own your car, and that went viral, and it's like 400,000 views on that one. And,
excellent.
And it had so many. I'm guessing this will have quite a lot of views as well, because we'll do a follow up with this. And we'll include this into it. And the amount of people had thousands of comments saying, "Yeah, this is all nonsense," but they just don't understand the way the system works.
They don't understand. This can all be traced. I mean, the thing is okay. Technically, you did own your car before Gordon Brown.
That's what he said. That's exactly what Gary said. Yeah, and he said it changed from owner to keeper, right? Yes,
he's right. So what technically happened is that now the thing with ownership, again, because people are illiterate, they still don't understand what ownership means. Because if you ask the average person in the street, do you own that? They think they own everything, the whole thing, including legal title. You go, no. It's, for example, I try and explain it to people. Let's say you've got a 5-year-old, okay? And the 5-year-old has a teddy bear. Okay. You ask the 5-year-old, do you own your teddy bear? The 5-year-old's going to go, yes, I own it. Mummy and daddy own the teddy bear. Okay. So you can own something, but you can also hand over legal title to someone else. And that's where people don't understand. They don't understand the meaning behind the word. So if you want superior title, sometimes it's also referred to a lloydial title. Okay, so a lloydial title, this actually comes from Jewish law from 2,000 years ago. But a lloydial title means you own it, you have user rights, you have total rights. All title is yours. No other authority can claim it. No other person can claim it in any way. You have a superior title to it, a lloydial title. So today, people say, I own it. And you go, no, you don't. Now, people can't understand this. So let me try and explain it another way. Let's say you rent a flat, okay? The flat or the house, the property, is owned by the landlord. So the landlord has ownership. He has ownership. But because you're the tenant, he is giving you the right to use it. So he's forfeit the right to use it. It says, so he has not got the right to use it. However, he's still the owner of it, okay? So if you can understand that, this is what the government does. And they do it with the car. So I believe it's all to do with the gold, and it was all to do with Gordon Brown. It's a little bit, but he was trying to support the GDP. So he actually stole all our cars and put that into the GDP to prop up the GDP. And that's when the logbook changed. Because before that, it said owner. And then after that, it said registered keeper. Registered keeper.
That's exactly what Gary said. Yeah. So this can't be pie in the sky if two people are saying exactly the same thing verbatim about this, who've researched it in depth.
He's right. He's right. So in fact, I like the sound of this Gary chat, because I got some people saying they watched your videos, and it was someone else who says, "Oh, you've got to listen to this Gary chat. He sounds just like me."
Yeah.
I said, really? So that's why we're chatting now. So
that's why we're doing it, and it's brilliant. Yes. Yeah. So basically, the upshot is we don't own anything. Well, okay. So what do we actually physically own? It's anything that you don't register, or it doesn't. It's not even that far.
Yes, I mean, yeah, you could say things like, as long as it's not registered. If there's
like a mobile phone, let's say a mobile phone. You don't own that either.
No, because okay, if it's an Apple phone, that one is becoming obvious that you don't own it. Okay, because you might notice a lot of Apple users have Apple overrides what the user wants. They'll take apps off your phone, and they'll censor your phone and track your phone. Okay, now no one reads the contract. I'll use air quotes. It's not really a contract, but layman's terms. No one reads the contract when you get an iPhone. Okay, it's pages and pages long, written in legalese. No one reads it. Everyone signs it, and they think they own the phone. No, you don't. Apple owns it. You just have use of it, and that is why Apple can do what it can do. Now, this is happening with all electronic devices. Okay, a Google phone, if it's got Google Android on it, and you get an account. See, the action of taking out an account is you accepting that corporation now has the right to control that phone. You've handed over the right. Microsoft is doing the same thing. So with Microsoft, you might buy my computer, so you can buy it and build it. So technically you own it, because the motherboard is blank, the hard drive's blank and all the rest of it. So I own it. But as soon as I install Microsoft Windows 11, they keep saying you've got to sign up for an account, sign up for an account. As soon as you do that, you're handing over ownership of the computer to Microsoft. They now have control over it. There's a lot of tech people out there on YouTube trying to warn everyone about that. They're trying to shout and say, can they?
Yeah, but they can't seize the equipment, can they?
They can switch it off. Microsoft Windows 11. They now have the ability to enter your computer if you've got an account. And they can delete files.
That's right.
They can take screen grabs of what you're doing. They can do keyboard. They can count your keys. You've given that over to them. So if they can do that and do anything they want, they can, shut it down. In fact, they can lock your computer out. They can stop it going online.
I know what you mean. They've got control over it, but they don't. They couldn't just come and take your phone away, though, could they?
They can switch it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be able to get it on again. In fact, that's what.
But if they did fully own it, then they could just say we want this back and hand it over. But they can't do that though, can they?
No. Well, you have ownership. They have the legal title.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like a teddy bear.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can make it so your phone is worthless. They can just switch it off and it's a brick. They're doing it now with iPhones. You can't. Some people are upgrading the software and then they realize that some older phones are switching off. No longer, it couldn't work anymore. I think it was the iPhone 6. It no longer works. You were locked out, and there's nothing you can do. They're also coding the parts to the iPhone. So Apple. So what's happening is if you try and fix it yourself and you try and get a brand new part and put it in there because the codes don't match, phone won't work. And then if you put the part back in again, phone still won't work. You've got to go to Apple, get permission to unlock it. It's all coming. You know, these corporations are being very insidious. They're stealing the equipment. They're taking control of it. So, and one day they'll just seize it.
Yeah, that would be the final part, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so we've spoken about. Was there anything did you want to tie the loop on anything there, or because we spoke about not owning anything?
Yes.
You did. I think you started off mentioning something, and then we went into that. But I don't know whether you feel like you tied the loop on that.
Well, I mean, you don't own your house, you don't own your car, your business, or anything like that. I mean, what's actually going on is it's even worse than that because they are creating. When you register with these corporations, what they're actually doing is the act of registration usually creates a certificate. You don't know any of this. You know, the average person doesn't know this. And what they're doing is they're securitizing the certificate and then they're making money off that, okay, in your name. So the way it works with your car, let's say for your car, it's brand new. You're buying a brand new BMW, £50,000 or whatever. What they do, the manufacturer, the company, BMW, they will make a certificate of conformity. Okay, that's a manifest. So that's the details of the car, the full spec of the car, the engine number and everything, the leather, the color and all that sort of stuff. Now that certificate of conformity has the same value as the car itself. All right, so if it's a £50,000 BMW in physical metal and leather and all the rest of it, that certificate has the same equivalent value. £50,000. So what happens is when you register your car, you buy it from a dealer, and the dealer normally just says to you, "Oh, would you like us to register it?" And the average person goes, "Okay, then," because they don't know what they're doing. DVLA takes that certificate, and it's worth 50,000. Okay, so they've got that. Now that can also go to the loan company. Let's say you've got you take a loan out. Well, they get that manifest, and they use that £50,000, which is yours because it's your car, to loan you the money to buy the car. So the overall asset is 100,000, the car itself and the certificate of conformity. It gets a bit complicated because one of the ways to get your car back from DVLA, this is something I'm researching, I'm very early days on this one, is to take that certificate of conformity back and accept it for value. Because it was created in your name, you're the creditor, it's a debt. It's an asset that you can use. Well, if I accept it for value, it clears it off. It cancels it. It gets rid of it entirely. Once you've done that, then the trust that was set up with DVLA collapses. See, in a trust, what you have in a trust, you've got to have something of value. It's normally called the res, something of value in that trust for the trust to exist. If you take the value out, the trust collapses. So if you go to DVLA and say, okay, the COC, I want that, and you would endorse it, you sign on the back, accept it for value, you sign it, blah, 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 date it, done. The debt's gone, the asset's gone, the trust collapses, you take your car back, it's yours 100%. And then what you can do, you don't need a logbook anymore. And then what you can do is you would use an affidavit to declare that that car belongs to you 100%. You have allowed your title, and you can even create a deed off that. And then you are out the system. Your car is out the system. That means ULEZ doesn't apply. The speeding tickets don't apply. The MOT doesn't apply. And all the rest of it does not apply. The police cannot pull you over. You don't have to have number plates. All the rest of it. In fact, you can't put number plates on because that would be committing fraud. But
people have done that though. People have done that, and it is a bit of a nightmare though, isn't it? I've seen that because they do get pulled over all the time because they obviously don't have a number plate, and they've had to go
Yes.
You know,
People have done it.
They've done. I'm sure. Yeah, I saw one guy, and he filmed himself in the police stations and everything else. You know, and
Yes.
it's just, is that the way to go though? Having to put yourself through that much stress? Do you think?
On an individual basis, I would say no, no. One thing I'd like to say about the Sovereign Project, it's Fight Club. We are talking about this, okay? We're learning. We're not going to act on it. We're just learning, okay? Our numbers are growing. We're learning about how the system actually operates. We're learning about the birth certificate. I mean, the good thing about 2020 is, you know, when all the lockdowns came, by the way, lockdowns was an offer. You didn't have to follow that. I didn't. So when all the lockdowns happened in 2020, the good thing about that is a lot of people woke up. They thought, oh my God, they thought, I don't like this law coming from government, so I'm going to go out and get me some common law. So that became very popular. That one was searching common law. Yep.
I did the Guardian's 300 training. You know, to become a common law constable. So
yeah, I know him. Yeah, we've got some constables here.
Yeah,
but yeah, so a lot of people get into this common law. Okay, and within this common law thing, it doesn't take long before you start learning about lawful and legal. You learn that, and then you stumble upon the birth certificate. You know, it doesn't take long because it's in the same, you know, community. That I don't like using the word community, but it's in the same sort of scene. And as soon as you learn about that, it's assessed to KV Trust, and as soon as you learn that, bang, you now know how the monetary system works, and you go, oh my God, I'm a slave.
That's like the kind of the nucleus of all of it, isn't it? The birth certificate, because that's when it all gets set up. Can you just lay the groundworks for that then? Because as that's the kind of the first rung of the ladder of you signing yourself away into sort of corporate debt, you become you kind of capitalize yourself, don't you, and become an asset of the state. What is a birth certificate? Who are we? And you know, what do we become?
No worries, I can sort that out. I'll do it simple version. And basically, there's two birth certificates. There's actually more, but I don't want to complicate it. And the way it works is you are born, and you are normally born in a state hospital. Okay, all state hospitals. That's state hospital mean it's controlled by the government, which is a corporation. All state hospitals are foundling hospitals. What that means is a place to abandon goods, including children. And you enter a ward. It's all in the wordings. They're telling you the ward on a hospital is the same as ward in a prison. Okay, it's the same thing. In fact, the word ward means you're handing over ownership. Okay, you've become ward of the state, for example. So you're in a foundling hospital in a ward. And what happens is the mother gives birth, and she signs some paperwork. She's not in any fit state to obviously sign any of this because she's just given birth. But she signs some paperwork and she becomes an informant. It even says it on the birth certificate. So she's basically informed the government she's just abandoned and given away her baby. Okay. The hospital themselves create a birth certificate on bonded paper. Well, so you can do this. Get your birth certificate, hold it up to the light. You'll see the watermark. It's bond. It's financial paper. It's bond paper. So the hospital creates a bond, a birth certificate of the live birth. Okay, they'll put you in that. And what they'll do is they'll create a manifest. So the manifest is how heavy you are, how tall, you know, length, colour of your eyes, boy, girl, that sort of stuff. That's a manifest. They create the manifest. And what they'll do is they will... although the hospital might not do this, I think the Vatican does this, but your weight is calculated in gold. All right. This is where the term worth your weight in gold comes from. So if you're 7 pounds 2 ounces, they'll calculate 7 pounds 2 ounces worth of gold, and that's what you're worth. So this birth certificate is created in all hospitals. They all do it. Now, one of the things they'll do is they'll take your foot, your newly born foot, put some black ink on it, push it up against a card, and that's you signing the contract. This is fraudulent. You haven't even reached the age of consent. How can you enter into a contract if you can't even speak yet? So the system's fraudulent. But anyway, so they put your foot there. You've entered into a contract. Now, what happens is the first two names, if you've got a middle name, you'll have first two names like John, Paul, or whatever, okay? That's your name, normally referred to as a Christian name. That's the birth certificate, the live birth certificate. This is the document. It's a security that can be used to create credit. Okay. And you have become the surety for it. You're the human resource that ensures that security instrument. Okay. You're the, if it was a cat or a dog or whatever, that's the collateral for it. This birth certificate is sold to the government. Now, the government sells it on again. And this is how the government actually funds itself. It does not fund itself through taxation in any way, shape or form. It funds itself through the credit, your credit using your name, and through the sale of these birth certificates. The birth certificate, the live one, is sold usually through the Bank of England. By the way, Bank of England's got nothing to do with England because it's got the word of in it. Bank of England means without. So it's got nothing to do with England. It's a private bank. They will use this, and with the Vatican, they will create a new birth certificate, which will be your corporate one. This is the debt entity, and this is where your surname is applied. That's your slave name. That's the debtor. So you've got one birth certificate that creates a credit, and then you've got another one that the average person thinks is their birth certificate. Okay, that's the debtor, the corporation. It even says on it, if you look on it, it says it's Crown copyrighted, so it's not yours. And it'll even say this is not to be used as a form of identification because it's not you, it is a corporation, and that's the debtor. And then the government uses these birth certificates to create the credit, and they spend, this is where all this money they spend all this credit. The national debt is the debt they owe you or us, because they used our credit to spend, and then they owe that back to us. So the national debt is what, 1.9 trillion or something? I haven't checked in a while. That is what they owe us. They owe us that, but they've got a problem. They've got no money of their own, so they can never pay it back. So what they do is they sell this debt on the debt market. Okay. And then they'll sell it to like utility companies. So a utility company is a credit broker. They do not sell gas and electric. So what they'll do is they'll buy government debt, and they'll pretend that they're selling you gas and electric, and they'll pretend that they're giving you a bill. They don't give you a bill. They give you a statement. And then you think you're paying for gas and electric, but what you're doing is you're paying back the government's debt. But you're the creditor. So you've paid twice. This is why your utility bills are called repayments. You're doing it again, repayments. So what happens is you're paying all this debt off. Now, while this debt exists, okay, the Vatican stepped in, they own the surname, okay. They turn around and say, well, while this debt is in the system, the financial system, there's interest to be paid. So where does the government get the interest payments from? Taxation. So your income tax, every time you pay income tax, you're paying the interest on this debt. 60% of your income tax goes to the Vatican, 40% goes to the Bank of England. All tax goes to the Vatican and the Bank of England, to the bond holders, to pay the interest until the debt is settled, when it's never gonna. So this is all through your trust. It's a foreign trust that is set up when you're newly born. This foreign trust is the creditor. This is linked to the government Sestake V trust. That's where they suck all the credit from into their Sestake V trust, and then they go and spend it, and then they turn you into the debtor. Hopefully that's explained it.
Yeah, that's full on. I mean, that's like a lifetime's worth of research just gone into that last 5 minutes, really.
Yes,
I've condensed it down. Yeah, you've condensed it down well there. Yeah, so Pete, we just talked about the birth certificate there. Gary actually did a video where he said he goes into courts and he has Black's Law Dictionary in one hand and he has Oxford English Dictionary in the other hand, and he says, which language are we talking here today? Because if you see me as a person, then you've got some mental health issues, because I'm a man, so that caused another bit of a ruckus online. But is that, do you also see that as well? And is that connected to the birth certificate then?
It is. We better talk about the courts themselves. In fact, let's just before we get into the courts, this is something we help people, is I just want to touch on rights. Yeah. See, people don't understand what a right is, all right? It's a package deal, all right? So rights isn't a thing on its own. Rights actually come with your authority, your court, this is a big one, your law, your jurisdiction, and your freedom. So something we do at the Sovereign Project is we wake people up and say, you do know you actually have your own court, okay? So people have been brainwashed into thinking they have to go to court. Well, the problem is, if you go to court, you're going to someone else's court. You've lost your sovereign status. You're now entering into someone else's jurisdiction. So if people just woke up to that, then most of this corruption would come to an end, because people go, what do you mean go to court? It's not my court. In fact, these courts tell you that it's not your court. For example, Royal Court of Justice. Okay, Royal Court of Justice. Well, the word of means without. So Royal Court of Justice means without justice. So there's no justice going on, and it's a royal court. They're telling you. And you go, well, if it's royal court, it's not mine, is it? Why am I going there? So people have got to wake up to, again, magistrate's court. That's not my court. Where am I going? It's the magistrate's court. It's his court. It's not mine. So people have got to wake up to this. You hold your own court. That's what sovereign means, okay? This is, and also another thing is you've got to understand that you make the law. You make it. No one else can. So if someone else is making the law and you're following it, then that makes you a slave. So if you follow someone else's law and they're telling you what to do, you're a slave there. That's your slave master. So law comes from here. Another thing about authority, right? There's no such thing as authorities. That's a scam, okay? People have been brainwashed. You think authorities, oh, I've got to do what the authorities say. It's a legal fiction. It doesn't even exist. There's only one authority, and that's yours. That's mine. I have my authority. For someone to tell me what to do, I have to give my authority to them and allow them to tell me what to do. This is done within a contract, okay? So if people understand what rights are, and they're yours, by the way, you can't get them from someone else. That's another thing. People keep banging on about Human Rights Act. And they go, what do you mean Human Rights Act? It's got nothing to do with me. It's got the word human in it. Colour of man. It's not man. It's got the word act in it. Human Rights Act. That means it's acting as law. It's not law. It's colour of law. Colour of man, colour of law, which means it's fictitious. If someone else has written down a piece of paper and they write Human Rights Act and they turn around and say, that's where I get my rights. No, it isn't. I never gave you authority to write my rights down on your bit of paper. My rights are mine. Okay, so people have got to wake up to this. So that's where rights comes from. They're yours. You can say they're divine if you wish. You can say they come from God if you're a religious type. That's entirely up to you. But do not let your source of rights come from another person or a legal fiction or a corporation or a government or a institution. A Bill of Rights. Don't do that. So once you understand that, you understand, okay, now I know what a court is because I've got my own. And going to court, I'm entering into someone else's court. Now you can begin to see the scam. You can begin to see what's actually going on. Now, a lot of people go into these courts thinking that they can use the Bill of Rights, they can use the bench book, they can use the coronation, they can quote acts and statutes, they can quote Magna Carta, all this sort of stuff. No, none of that works. None. Zero. None of it works. Because the court you are entering is a foreign vessel in dry dock. It's got nothing to do with the UK. By the way, UK is a corporation. It's not the land you're standing on. Okay, it's just a jurisdiction. It's a corporation that's placed on the land you're standing on. Nothing to do with Great Britain. Nothing to do with England. All right, none of it. So you go into these courtrooms, you start quoting this sort of stuff. No, they'll throw you out the door. So this is why most people lose, because they go in there and they think they're operating under the Bill of Rights, for example, but they're not. So there is no law in these courts at all. All right, there's three separate jurisdictions in these courts. One is a merchant bank. That's the first jurisdiction you walk into these courts. And they're telling you this. All right, they're using maritime law. If you are charged by the police or whatever, what they're doing is charging you a fee. You've already been found guilty. That's it. You've not even stepped into that courtroom at all. Okay. You're already guilty. Yeah. They're charging you a fee because you've done something wrong. You've got to pay. So the first court you go into, the first jurisdiction is a bank. So when they ask you, are you guilty or not guilty? They're not talking about your innocence. They're talking about, are you going to pay or are you not going to pay? The word guilty comes from guilt, as in government guild, a bond. It's a debt. That's where the word comes from, guilt. So they're basically saying, are you going to pay the bond? But the average person doesn't understand any of this. So it doesn't matter if you say, yes, you're guilty, or no, I'm not. You're guilty anyway. You've lost at that point. You cannot win at that stage. So you go in, Nothing you say in that room verbally is being heard in any way, shape, or form at all. All right, it's a dog and pony show. It is a soap opera. It's Punch and Judy. The judge might talk to you back and forth and say, you can ask this, you can ask that. It's irrelevant. What is going on in that courtroom is paperwork. It's the two-dimensional world, the fictitious world of the dead entity paperwork. That's all that's happening. And all they are doing is processing you. And they want you to allow them, I'm going to use air quotes again, allow them to enter your foreign trust. All right. So let's say you get caught speeding and they throw a £500 fee at you and you've got to pay it. So, oh, by the way, this is another thing. This is why people got to wake up. If you receive a fine, fines do not operate in law. Fines operate in contracts. Okay. So what they're saying is you breached a policy within a contract. Now you have to pay a fine. Okay. So it's all in the language. People got to wake up to this. So you go to court. Doesn't matter what you say, you're guilty anyway, and so they want you to pay. So if you say not guilty, well, what happens is the judge will let you speak and all the rest of it. And you think you're doing good, and then he will leave the courtroom, and then he'll come back again, and now he's changing the jurisdiction again. Now he's operating in Admiralty maritime law, and now he can make a judgment against you, and he'll just say, "Nah, you're guilty," blah blah blah. Now you've got to pay up, and then he dishes out the fine. Now, the fine itself is not really what they're after because it's chicken feed, it's crumbs, okay? If you pay 500 quid, that's nothing to them. They don't even care about that. What they really want is access to your foreign trust, which is connected to your live birth certificate, what we spoke about earlier. As a rule of thumb, for every £100 you pay in fines, they're dipping in £100,000 from your trust fund. So you get a £500 fine, they're dipping in for £500,000. They take it out the trust fund. And just you turning up is allowing it. They will force the surname onto you, even if you don't want to accept it. And this is how they'll do it. If you go into that courtroom and say, no, thank you, I don't have a surname and I don't accept the title Mr. What they'll do is say, okay, you're not here then. You didn't turn up. They will find against you, they'll put the hammer down and says, right, you've lost anyway. They'll put out a warrant for your arrest. And then you have the police coming around, kicking your door in and dragging you off to prison. This is insane. This system is insane. So people have got to wake up to this. But that's how the courts work. And then the final jurisdiction, there's three jurisdictions. The third jurisdiction is a religious court. And it's got nothing to do with the Christian God. It's their satanic god, Baal, Moloch. The New Testament, by the way, does not have the Christian God in it at all. It's been removed. All right. But they've done that with dog Latin. So everything. If you read where it says the Lord, capital L, and then the rest of the word is still capitals, but it's a smaller size font. So big L, capital, and then O-R-D, still capitals, but a smaller size. That splits the word in half. So that's an L, O-R-D. And people think, oh, the Lord, it's a Christian Lord. No. It's Baal. It's their God from Saturn and, the box and all the rest of it. You can really go down that rabbit hole if you want. It's really satanic. Another little thing that people need to wake up to. Ever wondered why judges wear wigs?
I've looked into that one. What was that? Isn't it something to do with it? It's like a sport. They're treating it like some kind of backwards and forwards. Like
it is a game.
Yeah, it's a game.
It's a game. But what it is, it's to hide their sins from God.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So what they're doing is the higher the court is, the more the lies get worse. Okay. And the higher or the closer to God they get. So the low level courts, they don't normally wear wigs. But as you start going up the higher courts, that's when the wigs start to go on because they know they're lying. And they put the wig on to shield their lies from God, the Christian God. And then when you get to the Supreme Court, you'll find there's a canopy, a roof, put over the top of the main judge because the wig is not enough to stop the lies getting through. So they put a canopy above them so the lies can't get through that.
They should wear a bloody Hamza suit then.
And you've got some tails as well. You know when they wear the wig, and there's tails hanging out of it? That's to do with they're a witch and they're casting spells over you and all this sort of stuff. It's their dark religion.
And it's also, I mean, when you said the second jurisdiction is about maritime law. That's why all the terms are water based, aren't they?
Yes.
That's the your worst ship, and they have the in the dock and
Yes.
merchant and all those types
Yes.
of things.
It's water terminology.
I think before I don't want to start talking about the solutions to this, because I think that's what your programs are about and your workshops, and I think we should lead
Yeah.
into that right at the end and give guys an avenue to go down to kind of find solutions to all this. So how about we so that was courts, and as you can see, everyone watching this is like a huge subject. We're just pulling the matrix apart here. We've got Neo in the house. Let's talk about, because you mentioned there, let's just take something, for instance, something a little bit more closer to home, right? Because we're talking in these are big topics here, and it almost feels like you're going against the leviathans, right? Corporate leviathans. Let's just take something on a much more localized level that people can maybe experiment with a little bit. You mentioned there, let's say a speeding fine.
Yeah.
So a speeding fine, you said, is not actual, it's not backed in any kind of real law, it's a contract. So you effectively don't have to enter into that contract unless you do what exactly? And how do people, let's just say they could do this as an experiment. How could they get out of a speeding fine?
Yes, it's getting more and more difficult, because what's happening is we've all heard about the Great Reset. It's happening in this decade, and they're ramping it up. Let me try and explain to people what the police do before we can get into the speeding.
All right, yeah, let's do police.
Yeah? Because before we can get into remedies, people need to know how the system works. Otherwise, they don't understand the remedies.
All right, so police officer and constable. That's kind of the
Yes, two separate jobs, two separate entities, if you like. Same person, but they do two separate jobs. Like one's a plumber, one's an electrician. Now, the way it works is the people at the very, very top of this scheme, do not want to be liable in any way, shape, or form, and most of them are not liable, because they get other people to do the work, right? And this includes police officers, okay, on the beat, the Bobby on the beat. They don't know this. Well, some have woken up to this. Some of my friends, by the way, are ex-police. And, so the way it works is when you join the police, you swear an oath as a constable first. Now, what this oath is actually doing is making you liable for all your actions, all of it. You are now liable for the acts and statutes, all of it. You're liable for it, okay? All the paperwork, you're liable for it as an individual, as a constable, okay? As soon as you've sworn that oath, the next day you become a police officer. Now, the constable and the police officer have two separate jobs. A constable is supposed to deal in law. Now, law requires a victim. So if there's a victim, then the law has been broken. That's what a crime is, okay? The police do not deal in laws at all, ever. They never deal in law, okay? They deal in what is called policies. That's where the name comes from. Policy enforcer, policy officer. That's where the name is. So they enforce policies from corporations. Now, let's explain what's going on with the debt. We spoke about that earlier. They've got the national debt. It goes up by about £5,000 per second. The government is in a serious, sticky situation. Because we have a debt-based monetary system at interest, it's a Ponzi scheme. So the more credit the government creates, the more credit you need plus interest to pay it back, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I've got a couple of notes here just to try and explain to people how it works. So let's just say, for example, this is the very, very first £5 note ever made in existence, the very first one. But it's a note of debt. It's a promissory note, and you've got to pay it back. That means you've got to pay £5 back plus interest, okay? Let's say the interest is £1, just to keep it simple. Where do you get the pound from to pay the interest? If this is the only £5 in existence, you print another one. So you've printed two. So now you can take £1 from this to pay the interest on this. But you've got this, and this needs interest. But you've just got rid of pound to pay the last one, and now you need £2 to pay the interest. So what do you do? Another one. And what do you do? Another one. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's going to explode. It's going to go exponential in this decade. I was warning people for years about this. It says it's coming in this decade. Anyway, so going back to the police. This is explained in a deck of cards. So if you take a deck of cards, you'll see the ace, and the ace can be high and the ace can be low. So the ace is you. The ace symbolizes you, okay, as the sovereign, Okay, you are ace high. Underneath that is the king. The king is always beneath you. The king, the queen are always beneath the people. The people are the ones with the sovereignty and status. The king and the queen only have sovereignty and title. They're always lower. So you've got the king, the queen, the jack. The jack represents government. And then the numbers like 10, 9, 8, all these symbolize government agencies. And in there will be utility companies and all the rest of it. Okay. Number two, the number 2 card represents the police officer on the beat. So you're the ace at the top of the card. You create the credit. Now, what the king and the queen do and the government, if you like, what they're doing is they're trying to pass the debt down the chain, and they're trying to make you aces low, to try and make you at the bottom of the deck of cards. You're the now number 1. You're the lowest of the low. If the number 10 card, number 9, number 8 can't get rid of that debt, they can't get rid of it. The last call is the police officer. He's told, sell this debt, get it done. Okay, and bailiffs as well, they're the same. And so this police officer, he's now being told, go out there and get tickets. He's the last resort to get rid of this debt, because what the police do, the police, all the police stations are private, for-profit corporations. They're privately owned. Okay, in fact, I believe Google owns Thames Valley Police. They bought shares in it. So they're no different than McDonald's. But what the police do is they buy the debt from the government. And then they go out there, and the police are told, go out there with speeding tickets, park tickets, you go out there and you get rid of this debt. So the number 2 card is the police officer on the street, but he is personally liable for his actions. And what he's doing is called legal entrapment. He's committing a crime, because all these acts and statutes that he's quoting only apply to your corporation. It doesn't apply to you in any way, shape or form. So you are tricked into thinking that you are the corporation. So going back to the speeding ticket, the police can pull you over, and nowadays the police can actually use computers and they can tell everything about your car. By the way, the VIN number on your car, that is linked to everything, your credit rating, your health details. They can get everything they want just on that VIN number. So before the guys even, before the police officers even finish pulling you over, on his device will be your face, and he'll know who owns it, the legal owner, the logbook, the driver's license, insurance, and all that he'll already know. But he will ask you who you are. He'll say, what is your name and what is your date of birth? And he'll be insistent on that. He will badger you for that. And what he's wanting you to do is to give the name and the date of birth of your corporation. As soon as you do that, you're entering into joinder with him. Now he can charge you a fine. And that's what they're doing. Now, what you could do a few years ago is you could talk to the policeman. If you knew a few choice sentences, you could say, look, are you under oath? Can I see your identification card? So you're a constable now. Can you please tell me the name of the victim? If there's no victim, then there's no crime. I do not wish to talk to you. Thank you very much. I dismiss you. You could say all this, and you could basically, the policeman will leave. Now, the police are just being violent. They've given up. They're not even following their own rules at this point. They're beating people up. They're just, it's almost as if the superintendent says, go out there, you can do what you want.
Wild West, yeah.
It really is. The police, by the way, are allowed to lie in court. They can make stuff up. They can lie, make stuff up, doesn't matter. So they can say things that never happened, doesn't matter. Because we're end game here. The government's desperate. They've got to get rid of this debt somehow, and they've got to get more and more tax. This is why electricity and gas has gone up, because the government needs more money. So they've just told all the utility companies, the credit brokers, right, put your prices up because we need more tax. This is why everything's going up. So, and the police have just been told, go out there, get as many tickets as possible, do whatever you want, lie, beat people up, don't care, as long as you force them to sign and all the rest of it. It's wild west, like you say. It's getting vicious out there. It really is. People have got to wake up fast.
So but you could still, let's say you could film some of the interactions as well, couldn't you? Yes. with the police, and that's what you've always probably got to do. Always have a record
Yes.
of everything. And then in that instance, what you've just said in terms of I don't want to enter into joinder. I won't be giving you my names. Am I being detained? No. Then you're dismissed. Yep. You're dismissed. You're dismissed. You're dismissed 3 times. I think you can say it. Yes. And then if it's not, it's harassment. And then you can say, if not, I'm going to hold you personally accountable. My fees are
Yes.
£500 for every 10 minutes of my time being wasted, and I'll hold you personally accountable for all that time. And can I see your warrant card and your number?
Yes.
So and you will be, and you're basically treating them as they should be, as public servants, and
Yes.
And bring it back to that level. So that still does work, but like you said, you have to be very streetwise and record it, and it has to, and you've got to be on top of that, otherwise they will just abuse it. That's what we're saying, right?
We've had instances here that they've just railroaded you. We've had people say, "Look, are you under oath?" And police, they say, "What do you mean oath?" And then they've just arrested people. But yeah, you've got to record it.
Yeah.
One of the solutions we're trying to work on is an app. So when you get caught with the police, you switch the app on, it records live, and it sends it out to thousands of people who can all witness what's going on. And if they're local to you, they can turn up and witness that sort of stuff. But it is getting vicious out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And there's something else I was going to say about that as well. Yeah. If you are to see their warrant card and they refuse to, you can actually ring up 999 and say, someone impersonating a police officer here.
Yes.
There's all that as well. I mean, it's treacherous ground, because you've really got to, I think you've got to get your head around this. You've got to be really well versed in this. Otherwise you're playing with fire a little bit.
You are.
So that's the policy officers, police officers. And they've even got like the black and white, what do they call it? The
Masonic symbol, the black and white checkerboard.
It's the Masonic checkerboard they've got on their all over them, don't they, on their uniform?
It's two separate corporations. So you've got the crown, that's the monarch, if you like. So that's one corporation, and then you've got the Masonic checker pattern, which is the Masons. Two separate corporations working together. And another thing, if you look at the badges, okay, so it might say Derby Police Force. Well, that's written in all caps. Now, people think that's Derby, the area, the geographic location. No, nothing to do with that. It's Derby, the corporation. So it might be Derby or Nottingham or whatever, Coventry. It's just a corporate name that just sounds like the area that you're living in. And people make the mistake, oh, that's Coventry or whatever. No. But it's all caps. Even the word police is all caps as well. If you notice, that police is written in all caps. So it's not English.
Yeah. So let's say that you get a speeding fine through the post now.
Yes.
Or a car parking fine or something like that. What's the best way to circumvent that?
Very difficult. Very difficult. What we're finding out is that the superintendent of these police stations are ignoring your paperwork. So you can write your notices and you can send information back to them and say, look, I'd like to deal with this, but I need X, Y, Z, but they're being ignored. So there are ways around it. One of the things that, again, the actual remedy is to deregister your car. If you don't have a number plate, then there is no jurisdiction going on. The police cannot even act. I mean, here's the thing, is, by the way, the police have no jurisdiction anyway, because what's going on is that the number plate is DVLA's corporate number plate. So that just means you're in contract with DVLA. All the police are doing this is a private corporation, and all they're doing is noticing that you've breached a policy with DVLA, and they're saying, would you like to pay us? That's all they're doing. So they don't have any jurisdiction anyway. But to do a speeding ticket is very difficult. Another way, okay, if you don't do the deregister the car thing, I know we're not ready for that yet. There's not enough of us yet.
Yeah.
One of the easier or slightly better ones is to place your car into a trust. All right. So instead of having your name on the registration logbook, because that's what they'll do, these police, there's 3 people in connection with any vehicle. Okay. That's the registered keeper, the driver, and the owner. They could be all 3 separate people. All right. Just because the car is registered with you does not mean that you are the driver or the owner. Okay. So the police are actually acting unlawfully here. So if you if you do you get a speeding ticket through the post and you try dealing with it, they ignore you. They will get your name from the logbook and just say that you are the driver. They don't have the right to do that, but they do. And then they'll just go through the courts and they'll fine you, and you'll just automatically have points on your license. And then they'll send you a bill saying you've got 28 days to pay the fine. And then they'll escalate it. Remember, the police are under extreme pressure to get rid of this debt by the government. The government's saying, you've got to get rid of this debt because it's in the trillions now. So they'll do anything at this point. They'll commit crimes, legal crimes. They don't care. Now, so what you can do is if you actually register your car with a trust, you set up a trust, and the logbook will not be in your name anymore, but it will be in the name of your trust. You know, call it Unicorn Trust or whatever it is. Unicorn Trust will not obviously have a driver's license, okay, because it's just the registered keeper. A 5-year-old can be a registered keeper of your car. So if you get a speeding ticket and you've registered your car with your trust, you'll send it back and say, I'm unable to give you the name of the driver because that would breach trust law. Okay. Now, trust law is in equity law, and it is above acts and statutes. Acts and statutes are very low down because a lot of people don't understand there's different levels to law. And when I use the word law, it's in quotes. It's not real law. It's colour of law. It's corporate policy. But trust law is way above acts and statutes. It actually operates above governments. Governments are below trust law. This is why all the ruling class, the parasite class, they have trusts.
Yeah, go figure. Yeah, and foundations, trusts and foundations.
You got it. You got it. So that's you know, you can put it into a trust. That's one way. There's other ways you can actually. Well, one of the ones you would do is you would challenge the obligation to pay. So if you get a speeding ticket, you can even challenge the fact that you've received documentation with no signature on it. So you go, there's no signature on this. So without a signature, the documentation is worthless. You see, this is something we teach. I don't like using the word teach. I talk, people listen. But on the workshops that we hold, we show people the power of your signature. And if you receive documentation without a signature on it, then you don't know who sent it. And if you don't know who sent it, you can't ascertain obligation. You don't know if you're obligated to reply or do anything that's written on that piece of paper. So you can send it back and say, look, I'd like to deal with this speeding ticket, but there's no signature on it. And without a signature, I can't even read the details of that document, okay, because it could be for someone else. You can send it back because the addressee might be wrong. It might say Mr. We say, I'm not a Mr. So if it's your name might be John Smith, but it might be Mr. John Smith. Well, that could be someone else. So you can send it back with that. You can even send it back. You might notice that the speeding tickets that's sent through the post, your last name will be in all caps. That's the name of your corporation. They've actually created an implied company. All right, it's not actually your birth certificate name. This is what utility companies do and all the rest of it. They create an implied company so they can enter into commerce with you. A living, breathing man or woman cannot enter into commerce. They're two separate jurisdictions. We can trade, we can't enter into commerce. You need a corporation to enter into commerce. So you can do that. You can challenge that and say, well, what's the end name? It's all caps. What's that? What's going on here? You know, you can do that. But what we're finding now is that the police are just ignoring the paperwork, and they're running. It's wild west. You know, if more and more people wake up to this and go, well, they'll wake up and realize the whole system is fraudulent, and then everyone will just pay, you know, their speeding tickets up and go, what's the point?
Yeah,
you know, hundreds of thousands of us all over. If they're not going to listen to me, I'm not going to listen to them. So yeah,
it has to reach a sort of a tipping point where there's enough people doing it. But going back to saying, let's say you had your name surnames in capitals, you could say, you know, I don't know who this person is. But then haven't we established that because of your birth certificate, you are trading with your straw man? So aren't you still responsible and accountable for that straw man because of the birth certificate? No,
because it's a different name. There's several of them. So I know a lot of people think that the name that the police are using is connected to your birth certificate. It's not. It's an implied company. They're making it up. So they will. Here's the thing: if you check, say for example, you open a bank account, and by the way, you don't own that bank account. You're just the administrator of that bank account, and the bank owns it. Okay. Well, for you to deal with a bank, which is a corporation, they have to create a corporation in your name. Now, if you have more than one bank account, you'll notice that they will rearrange your name in different styles. So it might be initials. You see there?
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're creating a brand new implied company that resembles your name for each of your bank accounts.
I wondered why that was. Yeah.
That's what they do. You've become a ghost director of these implied companies
that you never profit from. Basically,
which you never profit from.
You're just taking all the risk and none of the profit, basically.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right. And when you open these bank accounts, by the way, you are only privy to the debtor side of the account. You don't see the creditor side. The creditor side is worth millions sitting there waiting for you to collect. You only see the debtor side, which is normally zero for most people or negative.
So are there people that can actually collect that if they understand the system?
Yes. BB Bacchus, I believe, she knows how to do it. She claims everything back every 3 years. Every direct debit you can claim back, every check, all of this is new credit that you created. You can claim it all back. All the payments you make through that bank account, you can claim back. She knows how to do it. So she's a good one. There's many other people that are doing it. Like I say, I'm just a small voice in this game. There's big players out there that's been doing it. I'm just there's loads of us now, and we're all at different levels. I'm still on my journey.
Yeah. You're definitely but you're helping. You might think that, but you're further ahead than me and my audience. So we need to. It's actually better to hear from you, who is admitting that they've still got a long way to go, because it's accessible language for us. I think when it goes to the black belt levels, that would be too much to take in for us. So it's almost like you're guiding us on this. You're taking us on the first couple of steps on the yellow brick road.
Yes. That's what the Sovereign Project is.
Yeah,
is to take someone who's a newbie, who knows nothing. And we will take you through. We do a 22-week course. We'll take you through it, and at the end, you'll have an understanding of contract law, affidavits, lien process, signatures, all of this, and you'll know the difference between lawful and legal, and you'll be good to go. And then you can tackle the big juicy stuff like UCC, trust law, equity law, all the big stuff, becoming a secure party creditor, all this sort of stuff.
As you go through your course, would you also be part of a network that can support each other at the end?
Yes, that's right. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We've got different. We set up, I think it's 6 workshops across the country. So we're all doing it. We're all connected, and yes, we all help each other out, because I can't do it all. I can't have people coming to me. So the ones who have done the course a few times, they're now helping the newbies, and they're all forming groups. We've got multiple social media that people can jump on and share ideas and get connected, and it's expanding quite quickly, actually.
That's brilliant. So how can we do it? Come on, let's start. Let's get a tribe going.
Yes, anyone can do it. And if you go to the website, which is the sovereignproject.live, okay, there'll be lots of details on there. There's a whole load of stuff you can download for free. So a lot of the stuff I talk about, notices and affidavits, is how-to guides. It's all there for you. It's all free. Now there'll be contact information. I've got a lot of team people in my team now. So there'll be some contact information on there. So if you want to collaborate, if there's another group out there, you want to collaborate with us, there's an email there. If you want to get involved in our business directory, we're now connecting with businesses who want to get in on this and become part of the Sovereign Network. We've got a crypto specialist if you want to get into that. If you're ex-police or ex-military, okay, and you've woken up, we've got a specialist who's waiting for your call, an email, you can talk to him. Trust specialists, we've got 2 trust specialists on the team if you want to know more about that. The details of the workshops are there, so if you want to find where your local workshop is. And we've got social media on Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, Gab, MeWe, and Odysee. So if you want to get involved, get in contact. But yeah, get involved and learn this stuff. Get into a small group where you are. That's a good step. Find people in your area that want to learn this, and we can set you up as a workshop. We'll get you the information. We'll give you some PowerPoint presentations, and away you go.
Away you go. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Yeah, brilliant. Pete, you're on fire there, mate. That was genius. Yeah, And you've got
Cheers,
a good
buddy.
style. You've got a good accessible style about you, and I think everyone in the audience give Pete some love here. He's
Thanks.
in fact, you found a great way of communicating in a way that makes sense, and you hit so many different topics there. It's sort of expanding the mind every sentence. So credit to you,
Thanks.
Pete. Credit to you.